Is your lucky day? It's my lucky day. It's everyone's lucky day because we are going to get to have a ton of fun right now. We are going to be able to talk about some Dynasty Fantasy Football trades, some Dynasty Fantasy Football strategy while we hop in a real money fantasy football draft so we can watch that going on in the background, and also so I can entertain myself as we answer these questions, because when you spend 40 hours a week answering a question, at some point, you want to just be drafting on the background as well. So you have a couple different things going on. You know, my brain's broken. You know, I am addicted to these drafts. Let's not waste any time. Let's just go through. Let's hop into this puppy draft real quick. These are about to fill. Oh, dear God. We got to get in more of these before they fill. Okay, so we are in here. There's six spots available. So I don't want to hear any complaining about, oh, Mason and I can never get in a draft on the live stream. Well, if you were subscribed to the channel, if you had the bell hit next to the subscribe button where you were able to come out right away knowing when we were live, hell, you would have been able to be out here. Okay, but let me set up this chat so I can start answering questions. We are going to be selecting at the 111. Hey, 111, 102, 101. It's all the same this year. I don't necessarily think you have a significant advantage one way or another. So let me fire up this link. Okay, we have a lot of people out here. Thank you so much, of course, for everybody coming out. I am going to answer as many questions as I possibly can get to. I think we've done a really good job with these live streams where I think we've answered pretty much every trade question, every strategy question that we have had as well. Okay, so our first one coming out from Bobby, very simple question, says, what's up, Mason? Oh, my man. You know, I'm living life here. We have a draft going as well as a live stream. Can't get better than this. So let's find our next one. Raiders for Life says, I took Cooper Kupp at number 5 in a Dynasty startup. Is that good? I will tell you, it's very bad if it's Superflex. Very bad if it's Superflex. Now, if it's going to be a one quarterback format, if we walk through this, I think you have to take Jonathan Taylor over him. I personally would probably prefer Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think at the running back position, you can talk yourself into Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift. You can talk yourself into Kyle Pitts at tight end. So I'll say Superflex, not good at all. One quarterback, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Okay, so Ben says, outlook on Watson, question mark. I'm assuming you're talking about Deshaun Watson. As I've said so many times before, I am not a lawyer. I stated as soon as that trade happened that there was almost no chance Deshaun Watson was suspended for an entire season based on what Cleveland gave up to get him, because if he was all of a sudden suspended for an entire year, it would probably go down as the worst trade of all time. Well, oh dear God. Maybe it's just going to go down as the worst trade of all time. Maybe that's happening. Okay, so let's go through. Let's find our next question. I believe this is coming out from Corey. It says, Jonathan Taylor or Antonio Gibson, DK Metcalf, and a 2023 first. I honestly do think it's up to you. I think it's a deal that you could really regret 12 months from now if we end up getting Antonio Gibson flaming out, which looks like it is in the range of outcomes, and all of a sudden you have the wide receiver one for a Drew Lock offense and a 2023 first. If that ends up being a contending roster and ends up being like the 111, probably need to keep Jonathan Taylor unless it's like a 12, 14 team league where you start 11, 12, 13 players where it's just extremely deep. Then maybe you can convince yourself to go with the package. But now our next question coming out from Jake says, would you flip Kenneth Walker for a 2023 first? I think Kenneth Walker is right in line. That's his exact value. Now, if you were going to be playing in a super flex format, I think I'd consider one quarterback. No. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Chris, I believe, who says Jefferson and DeAndre Swift for Jonathan Taylor and Cortland Sutton in Dynasty. I'm assuming that y'all know where I'm going to go with this. Please, please, just give me Justin Jefferson and DeAndre Swift. Like, DeAndre Swift, I don't want to say he's in the same tier as Jonathan Taylor, but at least you can bring them up in the same sentence. At least you can try to go through and say, okay, well, I think most people would prefer DeAndre Swift in a 2023 first, or it would be equal. Like if I ask the chat right now, would you rather have DeAndre Swift in a 2023 first or Jonathan Taylor? Maybe it's split 50-50, whereas if you go through, would you rather have Justin Jefferson or Sutton in a 2023? It's Justin Jefferson. It's not even close for me. Please keep Justin Jefferson and DeAndre Swift. Donovan says, do you think Ronald Jones will do well in Kansas City this year? I think if you look at the price point of Ronald Jones, especially in Dynasty, is worth the shot. I think it's unlikely he does well, but that's priced into the market. Most people know, hell, Ronald Jones is probably a bad running back overall. But remember, where did the league-winning running backs come from last year? We're going to continue to talk about this all offseason. The league-winning running backs came from offenses where we didn't know what the running back breakdown and touches was going to be like, but we knew the offense was going to be elite. You had Arizona producing James Conner. You had Tampa producing Leonard Fournette. And not to the same extent, but Devin Singletary was very good down the stretch this past season. So yeah, I'm completely fine going through making that bet on Ronald Jones, simply just based off the fact that, hell, I mean, you're not too worried about the running back depth in Kansas City, and we know Kansas City will put up a crap ton of points. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Austin says, thoughts on Dalton Schultz, Odell Beckham Jr., and a second for George Kittle, John Mechie, and a fourth. I think at this point we can say Odell and John Mechie are comparable and we can remove them from the deal. So essentially, would you rather have Dalton Schultz in a future second or George Kittle? I personally want to say Kittle, but if we look at the actual production for Dalton Schultz and the opportunity that he should have in Dallas this upcoming season, it's hard for me to make that argument with a straight face. Like, it's hard for me to try to be smart and tell you not to go out there and get Dalton Schultz, who will be in a much better passing environment overall, who will probably have an equal amount of competition for targets, who's younger than George Kittle. It's definitely a fair deal. My lizard brain wants to say George Kittle. My actual brain wants to say Dalton Schultz. Okay. Loco says, hey, Mason, would you trade Ryan Tannehill / Malik Willis, Chris Olave, George Pickens in a future second for Russell Wilson, Chase Claypool, and a future second? Okay, so I don't know why we needed to include the seconds. Let's just remove those. And if we are looking at George Pickens versus Chase Claypool, I think it's comparable. Like, would you rather have the Tennessee quarterbacks and Chris Olave or Russell Wilson? Give me Russell Wilson 7 days a week. I mean, I understand with Olave, he's a wide receiver with a lot of upside. Trust me, y'all know I love me some Chris Olave, but Russell Wilson's just that bona fide stud, top 10 quarterback regardless. And real quick, this will be the only time I do this in this video, so bear with me. But there's, for whatever reason, somebody watching this live stream right now, somebody watching this video that has not signed up for Underdog Fantasy, that has not gone to the link in the description, the link in the live chat, the link in the comment section, and gone to sign up for Underdog Fantasy, where you can get into real money fantasy football drafts with us today, tomorrow, the next day, the day after that. We do these live streams every single day because drafting on Underdog Fantasy is about the most fun thing you can do. And when you sign up and use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So what that means is you're getting paid to do fantasy football drafts, and you're going to get my dynasty rankings, my dynasty rookie rankings, my dynasty rookie draft guide that has over 130 pages of information. And most importantly, you can have some fun in these drafts. But let's go through and let's find our next question. This one's going to be coming out from Devin. Says, is it worth trading a future first and a second for Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, and Van Jefferson? So essentially, is it worth trading a first and a second for Cam Akers? I would say based on the price point of Cam Akers in Dynasty right now, most people would prefer the first and the second round pick. Although I think Akers is a more appealing buy in Dynasty than he will be in redraft. Because if you're looking at Dynasty leagues, Darrell Henderson's not under contract. Darrell Henderson's not under contract for 2023. So if he is gone and we see the role expanded overall, I think you can be pretty damn excited about Cam Akers, especially when he's 2 years removed from that torn Achilles. Okay, so Giddy Up says, Michael Pittman or David Montgomery scoring more points over the next 2 years? I honestly would probably bet on Montgomery. The issue is David Montgomery not under contract for Chicago. Like, if you ask me who scores more raw points this upcoming season between the two, I think I'm going to go David Montgomery over Michael Pittman. Okay. So our next question coming out from Austin says, thoughts on trading Dalton? I know we already answered that one. Please do not repeat your questions. I promise you I'm going to get to them in order. We have a donation question coming out, except if it's a donation question, then I got to go through and I got to answer right away. Thank you so much, my man, for supporting the channel, of course. And this question is, thanks for all the work you do, brother. Got my Dynasty draft next week in Vegas with the boys. Your book is awesome and helped a bunch. Made it to the championship last year and still got the 101 and 103 this year. Okay, that is ridiculous, my man. Thank you, of course, for being a part of the flock. I'm assuming when you're talking about our book, the Dynasty Research book, not necessarily the Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, but thank you so much for the support. Wishing you the best of luck, and that's the dream. Having a group of friends that you're in a Dynasty League with that you can go do your rookie draft in Vegas every year. Like, oh, dear God. I wish I had something like that. I don't know anybody in my real life circle that plays Dynasty or plays really fantasy football at all. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Bobby says, sitting in a beach chair right now. Okay, my man, I'll say, if you're sitting in a beach chair outside, last hour of work with the beer, now drafting with Mason, life's good. Okay, that does sound pretty good, my man. Of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock. Thank you for supporting the channel. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Jamiril says, what are your thoughts on Isaiah? I can't even pronounce the name. The running back that's currently like the third or fourth string running back in Kansas City. I think he's definitely worth a pickup. I mean, if you look at the depth chart right now, like Derek Gore is the third running back available. So anybody that could potentially make that Kansas City Chiefs roster at the running back position, yes, is worth the pickup, is worth a roster spot. I wouldn't trade anything for him, but worth a roster spot. Okay. So now our next question coming out from Giddy Up says, David Montgomery going to get re-upped with the Bears for another 3 years? Question mark. My man, I do not know. I do not know. If you're a David Montgomery owner, you're hoping. And I will say, like, who is Chicago paying? They have Justin Fields on the rookie contract. They let Allen Robinson walk. I would imagine they have the money to bring back David Montgomery. I don't see why they wouldn't either. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Raiders for Life says, not Cup. I meant Joe Burrow. Okay, so you're saying you took Joe Burrow at pick 5. I personally prefer Kyler Murray if it's a 4-point dynasty startup passing touchdown, of course. But if it's going to be a 6-point passing touchdown league, I'm completely fine with Burrow. Okay, Powers 3G says, sorry, Mason, you're about to get sniped. Okay, I'm assuming you're maybe sitting here with us at the 110. Let me know where you're drafting in this league, my man. And Saran coming out says, a 10-team Superflex, start 9. I'm a contender. Should I trade a 2024 second for DeAndre Hopkins? 100%, especially in a 10-team league where depth isn't going to matter as much, where we should probably prioritize getting a player that has an elite ceiling in there, which is exactly what DeAndre Hopkins is. So 100%, I'm going to do that. Our next question coming out from Zach, I believe. Let me find this again. The page refreshed. Says, traded Treylon Burks and Jahan Dotson for Jerry Jeudy, a 2023 third, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Your contending roster, what are the thoughts? I would say you prefer Juju over Jahan Dotson, and Jerry Jeudy, Treylon Burks are in the same tier for me. So on a contending roster, man, I love that deal. Now, you'll see that on Underdog, redraft drafters right now have lost their goddamn mind. Like, I can't begin to understand this. I can't begin to understand it. Sutton, 32. Michael Pittman Jr. at 29. Michael Pittman Jr. going before Leonard freaking Fournette. Like, and this is not something that just happened in this draft. This happens in a decent amount of leagues. I am personally standing by the fact that I am projecting Jerry Jeudy to be the wide receiver 1 based on what we saw when they were both on the field last year, when Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 1, almost 4 years younger. So I love the idea of going and getting Jerry Jeudy if you think this overall passing offense is significantly better, which it will be with Russell Wilson. Okay, so JS Blaze says, rebuilding in a 12-team PPR Superflex, would you trade Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown for Breece Hall and Devonta Smith? Honestly, I understand the temptation of going through and looking to just get younger and honestly a higher floor with Breece Hall in terms of his dynasty value on a rebuilding roster. But I think the downgrade you're getting from A.J. Brown to Devonta Smith is enough to at least ask for like a second-round pick in return. I think you at least need a second in return. Okay, so let me prepare for our next picks. Gabriel Davis, fallen like a rock. Do not make fun of me if I have to take Gabriel Davis here. Brandon Cooks goes. Okay, so Gabriel Davis is one of my least drafted players in fantasy, right? But on Underdog Fantasy, for whatever reason, this is someone that usually goes at the end of the 4th round, the very beginning of the 5th. So just because I'm going to do like 400 of these drafts this offseason, I have to at least be responsible. And when we get Gabriel Davis falling to this range, I think we have to go through and we have to take him. Juju goes directly after. I know most people probably would have preferred us to go Juju Smith-Schuster, but when we already had the stack with Kelsey, I don't really love Juju's value in these drafts either. I mean, this is a wide receiver getting paid $2.5 million. We're going to go Josh Jacobs at the beginning of the sixth. One of my favorite picks in these drafts, Josh Jacobs in the sixth round. Okay. So now our next question coming out from Jacob says, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, or CeeDee Lamb. I'm sorry, Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry, or CeeDee Lamb, a future second and a third. I think you probably have to go Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry. Obviously, if you're a rebuilding roster, you're wanting to move off those pieces. I just think you can get more in return. Bobby says, Derrick Henry at the 109. Thank you. Yeah, I've seen Derrick Henry fall in these drafts consistently where, I mean, on our redraft channel at the beginning of the offseason, I was screaming how bad Derrick Henry was of a value when he was going at pick 2, pick 3. But now that Derrick Henry's falling to pick 9, like, yeah, I'm all of a sudden going to be drafting a decent amount of Henry. Okay, so now Trey says, 12-team Superflex, start 10. Would you trade Dak for Trey Lance and a 2023 first? Yes, but my brain's broken. Yes, but I'm an idiot. Yes, but I'm willing to go all in on Trey Lance, as I've said over and over and over and over again. It's probably not smart, but I'm doing it. Okay, Rusty says, will you tell me if I made a good trade? I got Hollywood Brown, a future first, and a late second this year for the 103 and the 13th pick. So you essentially traded the 103 for Hollywood Brown and a 2023 first. Hell yes, you made a great trade. I mean, that 103 was probably Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker. Easily going to prefer Hollywood Brown in the first over him. I mean, the first round pick may be a better player straight up. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Lyndon, who says, hey, Mason, I traded Cam Akers away for a 2023 first. He was my running back 4 behind Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, and Joe Mixon. And I have Tyler Algier, Haskins, and Robinson on my bench in taxi squad. What are your thoughts? I think it's fair price for Cam Akers. As I was saying earlier in this live stream, like with Akers, I'm fine fading him in redraft. Like when he's going at pick 43 here in redraft leagues, I'll say, okay, yeah, I'm probably not going to take Akers, but in Dynasty, you have to at least look towards the future and see that you're going to have Cam Akers with no Darrell Henderson next year. And you're going to have Cam Akers 2 years removed from the torn Achilles in an offense that's going to be great because they have Cooper Kupp locked up. They have Allen Robinson locked up. And most importantly, they have Matthew Stafford locked up. Okay. So let's go through and find our next question. Eli coming out says, ended up with the 101 and the 102 this year. Hall in London or Hall in Kenneth Walker? Assuming that you play in a league where you can at least start 5 wide receivers. So I think at this point, a very standard Dynasty format is going to be you start 3 receivers and then 2 flex spots. If that's going to be the format, give me Drake London, a wide receiver that checks every single box compared to a running back in Kenneth Walker that you do have to worry that he's not going to catch passes out of the backfield. But I will admit, if you're playing in like a 10-team league where you could only start up to 4 wide receivers, there it would be very appealing to just go ahead and to just take Kenneth Walker, even though I don't want to admit it. Okay, so Big Rig coming out says, as a contender with Dak Prescott in a 1-quarterback format, would you trade TJ Hawkinson in the future second for Dalton Schultz and a future first? 100%. Like if we go through, this is one thing that I do think you could really gain some value with from Underdog Fantasy and hopping into these redraft leagues and understanding realistic expectations and trying to use those expectations for this upcoming season to guide your dynasty value. Like right now, Dalton Schultz goes ahead of TJ Hawkinson by a full round in most of these drafts. And if you look at Dalton Schultz, this is a tight end that's 25 years old right now. Like there's not necessarily a reason we should be expecting a fallback anytime soon from him. So yes, I really like that. And we really need Treylon Burks here. Please take Dak. Please take Tom Brady. Do not take Treylon from us. See what he does. Okay. So now our next question coming out from Donovan says, thanks for the answer. I traded for him pretty much nothing. And I figured since he was an elite offense, it was worth a shot. Okay. Yeah. As long as you didn't pay up anything, my man. As long as you didn't pay anything up. Okay, Jack of Spade says, 10-person league, not super flex, have PPR start 8. Okay, so this is kind of the dynasty strategy coming into it. You really have to think through supply and demand of this league. It's a 10-team league where you start 8 players. So if we walk through this, you're going to start a quarterback. You're going to start a tight end. You're probably going to start 2 running backs. So at most, you can start 4 wide receivers. At the very most, it's a 10-team league, so you're probably going to have a running back in one of those flex spots. So if you, on average, have a running back in one of those flex spots, just think this through. How many receivers are being started from a week-to-week basis? 30. That is 30 wide receivers are being started in this format. Whereas if we compare this to, say, a 12-team league where you start 11 players, which is pretty much a standard league I play in. Sometimes we're playing in leagues that you have to start 12. But in that format, it's going to be a little bit different, where all of a sudden you start quarterback, super flex, tight end, 2 running backs minimum. So you have 6 spots open. Even if you assume that every team has at least 1 running back in a flex spot, which is not going to be the case in a 12-team league. Let me do some quick math. You have 12 teams starting 5 to 6 wide receivers. So you have 50 to 62 receivers being started every single week. All of a sudden, the player pool that you become interested in is completely different. Like in the first league, like the one we're about to talk about, someone like Christian Kirk, someone like Sky Moore, someone like Tyler Lockett, they have no value at all. Because even if they're a top 24 wide receiver, it doesn't really matter. Having the wide receiver 22 does nothing for your team in that format. So let's look at this team. You have Mahomes, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Leonard Fournette, Jerry Jeudy, Dalton Schultz, and an older bench. At what point do you think I need to go full rebuild? I think you have enough production in this starting lineup right now where I would start the season with this team and then play it out. So we're going to go into the year with this team, and all of a sudden, if we are sitting 0-3, 0-4, then we know, hell, I got to trade away Leonard Fournette. Let's see if I can get a 2023 first. Oh, crap, I got to trade away Mike Evans. See what I can get in return for Mike Evans. But if this team starts 3-0, this team starts 3-1, 4-0, I mean, at that point, you know you want to push your chips in the middle, and you just want to go for it. Okay. Jared says Claypool and the 201 for a 2023 first. If it's going to be a super flex format, I probably would take the first. Jay Wall says Lamb or Sky Moore in 2 future first in a 12-team super flex format. I'm going to take Sky Moore in 2 future first. I love me some CeeDee Lamb. If you look at the target share that he should have this upcoming season with no Amari Cooper and no Cedric Wilson, it is exciting, but come on. You're getting the 2 extra first on top of it. You're going to have so much flexibility to make moves when we get to the season. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Harmon says, what about Najee Harris and a second for Jonathan Taylor in a Dynasty Superflex? I think most people in this chat would tell you Jonathan Taylor. I think it's up to you. Like questions like that, guys, it's just personal preference. I know it's so boring for me to answer it that way, but in reality, while I think that I am a significantly better Dynasty player than most with my Dynasty Fantasy Football strategy, with how we can construct rosters, with how we can evaluate rookies, like when it comes to nuances like that with players that the entire community can agree that, oh, that's probably a fair price point. Very rarely are you going to see a player that's severely overvalued or severely undervalued. If you all of a sudden, if you have a strong opinion on every single player, you probably don't know what you're talking about. Like if every single player you go through round 8, you go, oh, Chris Olave, he should be going way earlier than this. MVS, he should be going way later than this. Tony Pollard, he should be going way earlier than this. Matthew Stafford, he should be going, the majority of the time, a player's priced in a specific way for a reason. That's why whenever I see Courtland Sutton, whenever I see Michael Pittman Jr. going in the 3rd round of these drafts, I have to do a double take. I have to reevaluate my process and say, is there something that I missed here? Because I've been wrong before. I'm going to be wrong again. I'll be wrong over and over and over and over again. So if it's close like that, where the entire Dynasty community has Jonathan Taylor and their Najee Harris prices pegged down, and it's just a 2nd round pick, it's really up to you, my man. Caden says, beautiful thumbnail, Mason, my man. Thomas made it just for you. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Refuse says, traded Michael Pittman for a 2023 first, 2nd, and McCole Hardman in a 10-team Superflex. Love it, 10-team Superflex. I'd argue that there are probably 10 rookies in next year's class I prefer over Michael Pittman Jr. Great deal. Okay, so Ross says 12-team Superflex, which side? Joe Mixon in a second or David Montgomery in a future first? I would probably take David Montgomery in the future first. Jake says, should I trade A.J. Dillon for Mike Williams? Going to depend on your format. I hate to give you that answer, but it's going to depend on your format. Okay, so let's go through. Let's pull this up. Cordell Patterson just continuing to fall in these drafts. Like, is there something that happened why I need to stop drafting Cordell Patterson? We're going to go ahead. We'll take Damian Harris. I'm not a big Damian Harris fan, but hell, he has an ADP of 96. We're getting him at 107. Like I said, I'm going to be drafting over 400 of these teams. And like I was just saying, very rarely can you come out here and you can say, oh, I am 100% smarter than the market. I know how to evaluate players down to a T, and all of my evaluations are going to be correct, and everybody else is correct. No, it's the wisdom of the crowds. If we are going to have Damian Harris 11 picks past his ADP, we probably just have to go ahead and take him. And we're going to take whoever falls between Chase Claypool and James Cook. I kind of want to, good. I was wanting to grab James Cook here. So let's go through, find our next question. Power says, I want to trade Cup. He's at the highest value now with some past injury issues. I wouldn't be concerned about any injury issues for Cooper Kupp. I'm fine with you trading him. I don't think that should be the reason. What would you ask for him? I have some people who expressed interest. Okay, of course, this is such a broad question that how the hell am I supposed to answer this? Well, what I will say is the video we uploaded a couple days ago where I went through my wide receiver rankings and my wide receiver tiers, people are laughing in the comment section that Cooper Kupp is in the same tier as CeeDee Lamb. So I think if you could trade Cooper Kupp and you could get CeeDee Lamb and possibly a small pick on top of it, I would like to make that deal. If you want to trade away Kupp. If you don't, hell, I'm fine with you keeping him. Okay, so now our next question going to be coming out from Cal. Says, what's the most you'd pay for Christian Kirk in a PPR Dynasty League where you can start up to 4 wide receivers? If you can only start up to 4 wide receivers, what are we doing trading for Christian Kirk? If it's a league where you start 2 wide receivers and 2 flex spots, Christian Kirk's not your guy, my man. Christian Kirk's your guy if you can start 3 wide receivers and you have 3 to 4 flex spots. Let's find our next question. This is Scott. Says, would you trade Jalen Hurts for Trey Lance and a second-round pick in a 16-team single quarterback dynasty? You must be new here, but my man, I don't know if you know this, but I am the long-lost son of Trey Lance. I don't know if anybody here knew that, but I actually tweeted out last year that I took an Ancestry.com test, and it came back that he was my official dad. So I'm never going to go against our guy, Trey Lance. Of course, I'm not going against our guy, Trey Lance. Take Lance in the second over Jalen Hurts. Okay, Matthew says, PPR 12-team Superflex. Team is young and can win now. What wide receiver can I get for Michael Pittman and Jerry Jeudy? Okay, so if you're wanting to package both of these guys together based on the current expectations for them and how young they are. I mean, these are 2 wide receivers that were drafted in 2020. And if we just pull this up, this is why I do think you should go, like, even if it's just depositing $10 on Underdog Fantasy, getting $20 into your account and firing up 4 of these drafts so you can have a decent understanding of what realistic expectations are for these players this upcoming season. Like, if we go through this right now, these are wide receivers that were drafted in 2020 where Michael Pittman Jr. is going pick 29. Jerry Jeudy is going pick 40. Like, if we are packaging these 2 players together, you want to be getting someone like Deebo Samuel. You want to be getting someone like CeeDee Lamb in return. Now, personally, I think that Michael Pittman Jr. is highly overvalued, highly overrated. But hell, it is what it is. Now, let's find our next question. Coming up from Jonathan says, is Amon-Ra St. Brown a bust? What the hell are you asking, my man? Amon-Ra St. Brown was a wide receiver drafted in the 4th round. He is, like, for a wide receiver drafted in the 4th round, for where his dynasty value currently is, he has already hit. It doesn't matter if Amon-Ra St. Brown comes out this upcoming season's the 4th option in the passing game behind Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, and TJ Hawkinson. Now, I will say that's not happening. That's not happening. I think with Amon-Ra St. Brown in a PPR format, he can possibly lead this team in overall targets. Now, he's not going to be as valuable for the Detroit Lions as Jameson Williams because a slot wide receiver inherently is just more replaceable than what you're going to have with one of those guys that has the elite field stretching ability. But yeah, why are we talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown being a bust? What is going on here? Okay, so we have a donation question coming out from Glitch. Thank you, my man. It says, Tua Tagovailoa and Hill and Tua, Tyreek Hill, and McCole Hardman, or DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, and Nick Chubb. Oh my gosh, my man. This is easily the DK Metcalf side. I prefer DK Metcalf in Dynasty, or I prefer DK Metcalf and Brandon Ayuk, that package in Dynasty over Tyreek Hill. I prefer Russell Wilson and Nick Chubb over Tua Tagovailoa. I prefer Russell Wilson over Tua straight up. Like, it's literally, I would take DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson, and Brandon Ayuk over Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill, even before you added Nick Chubb onto it. Okay. So now let's go through and find our next question. This one is coming out from William. Says, in a 10-team Dynasty Best Ball Superflex tight end premium startup, would you trade the 209 and the 302 if you can get the 104 and the 807? Okay, very rarely would I say in a Best Ball Dynasty startup where depth is going to be key. Keep in mind, in a Best Ball Dynasty startup, it's all about the depth. That's the number one thing you should be caring about. Very rarely would I say you should trade up. But if this is the price point to do so, I think it's fair. I would try to get their 7th round selection instead of their 8th, though. Okay, so Goff coming out says, can James Cook finish as a high-end running back 2 in a 12-team half PPR format this season? Speaking as someone who just drafted James Cook here, yes, I do not think that James Cook is a talented player. I know most people want us to go McCole Hardman here to get the stack. I think there's a good chance he passed on McCole Hardman. Just a quick side note. But I think with James Cook, not necessarily an extremely talented player, but lands in the perfect situation. And as we were going back and talking about Ronald Jones, a very similar type situation. A very similar situation that you're looking at in Buffalo. What we want to be doing is we want to be looking at backfields if we're trying to identify league-winning running backs. Backfields that are uncertain, but we know the offense is going to put up a crap ton of points. We don't exactly know how the distribution of touches is going to be there for the combination of Devin Singletary and James Cook, but we know the Bills are going to put up a crap ton of points. I'd be fine going through and taking James Cook. Now, we are going to draft McCole Hardman here. I mean, that's the easiest pick ever in a best ball format where we have Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey to go ahead and get that double stack coming in. Okay, so we were drafting at the 111. I know we haven't really talked about this too much. We took Devontae Adams in the first, Kelsey in the second, DJ Moore, Patrick Mahomes at the turn. The reason we take DJ Moore here over Hollywood Brown is we knew we were taking Patrick Mahomes in drafts where we don't know if we're taking Patrick Mahomes. Then instead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Hollywood Brown so we can set ourselves up with the Kyler Murray stack at the 5-6 turn. Very rarely am I taking Gabriel Davis, but that's because he usually goes at the 4-5 turn. I don't even think he's a good value here, but I think when he falls this far, we have to take him. Josh Jacobs, pick 62, Treylon Burks, Kenneth Walker, Damian Harris, James Cook, Kenny Golladay, McCole Hardman. I really like this team so far. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's find this next question. This next one coming out from Harmon says, Amon-Ra St. Brown for Chase Claypool. I'm easily going to prefer Amon-Ra St. Brown there based on what we saw his rookie season. Goff says, actually, no, we already answered that one from him. Henry says, pick 30 for Leonard Fournette. Farthest I have seen him slide in a long time. Must be the fat linear reports. Yeah, very rarely are you seeing Leonard Fournette in the 3rd round at all, especially, I mean, past like the 303 or 304. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Branston says, I have the 103. Do I trade it to also get the 102? Do I trade? Okay, my man. Like, let's go through it. I'm not trying to be an ass here. Like, trust me, I love answering y'all's questions. I could not be more appreciative that y'all come out. But let's read this question. I just want to go over an example of, because I get questions like this a lot. And I just want to go over an example of a question where, how am I supposed to help you out on this one? Your question was, I have the 103. So you have the rookie pick 103. Do I trade to also get the 102? Okay. You having the 103 makes no impact whatsoever on your desire to have the 2nd pick overall. Maybe it would be cool. Maybe it would be fun for you to be able to go click, click, and draft 2 players in a row instead of only have 1. But essentially the question is, should I trade for the 102? Just randomly. I'll say, if you like Drake London, trade for the 102. Like, if that's what you want to do. If you like Drake London, go get it. But having the 103 doesn't necessarily move the needle at all. Like, if you're going to overpay for the 102 just because you have the 3rd pick in the rookie draft, that's like saying, you know what, man? I have a dog. Should I go fishing tomorrow? Or I have a dog. Should I go skydiving tomorrow? Like, it's like, man, they're two completely separate things. Like, why are you giving me this information? Okay, now let's find our next question. Just a quick side note. Austin says, what would you pay for Leonard Fournette? Half PPR, considering your team is young but full of elite talent and just need a win-down guy. Start 9 in a defense. Start 9. I actually kind of like Leonard Fournette, just given the fact that we know that he has that elite level ceiling, and I think you can churn through those players. If we're looking to move for Fournette and we have an elite team, I would be trying to sell our 2023 first and getting Leonard Fournette back into 2023 second. And the reason I'm saying to do that, if you want to trade for Leonard Fournette, trust me, I would first look to keep your rookie picks. That's always the goal, but I don't know your team. So what am I supposed to just grab random names and throw them against the wall and go, okay, well, hopefully he has this guy. So if I had to put it in terms of draft pick price for Leonard Fournette, he is worth more than a second. I wouldn't pay an entire first. So if I had to put it in those terms, I would pay a first for Leonard Fournette and a second. Okay. Let's pull this up real quick, figure out where we are going. All the running backs are off the board now. Jahan Dotson goes as well. Okay, so now our next question from Malachi says, what would you attach to DK Metcalf and to try to trade for Cooper Kupp? Very similar. I don't think you can attach a first to Metcalf for Cooper Kupp. If it's a super flex format, I think it would be a first and trying to get a second in return. Okay, so Deshaun Watson goes. I'm assuming we're taking, I don't want to say anything out loud. So this is going to be a build where we go 2-6-8-2. 2-6-8-2 for the build. If we're looking at wide receiver quarterback stacks we could have later on, we could get Tannehill later on at a decent price point. Not dying to get Lawrence here, so we're going to go ahead and we are just going to take another wide receiver. We're just going to take KJ Osborne because these two tight ends are almost identical for me, David Njoku and Hunter Henry. And if we look at the team that's picking between us, they have 0 quarterbacks. So we can assume that they're probably going to grab a quarterback here, and they already have Kyle Pitts, so I don't think they're going to go back-to-back tight end. If they do, it'd be very stupid. Okay, so let's find our next question. Garrett says, hey, I'm trying to set up a dynasty league with my friends. How many taxi squad and bench slots should I do? I'd say if it's going to be a 12-team league, I think you need at least 25 roster spots. And how we used to run our leagues on MFL is we would go through and we'd have 25 roster spots and a 10-man taxi. Like, with the taxi squad, a simple rule of thumb is you can't have too many taxi squad spots. It's impossible to have too many taxi squad spots because, hell, you're going to be upset that someone rosters too many undrafted free agents that have a 0.0000001% chance of ever working out. Like, I think you can give people 10, 15 taxi squad spots if they want, because, hell, you go through and you fill that taxi and you try to find the next Elijah Mitchell. Okay. So now Batmac Gaming says, I have a 12-team super flex with a tiered PPR scoring tomorrow. I have the 109. Thinking about grabbing Kyle Pitts. Okay, I'd say if you have the 109, Kyle Pitts is a fine option because if you look at the percentage of the starting lineup that he is going to account for in a tiered PPR format compared to just even a regular tight end premium league, because the running back scoring will be slightly depressed, it does make sense. But if it's a super flex league and you have someone like Kyler Murray there, I think you probably have to go Kyler. Okay, Dog coming out says, how do you feel about Stephon Diggs going before Jamar Chase? I'm assuming, did that happen in this draft? Okay, yeah, Stephon Diggs goes to the 105, Jamar Chase at the 106. I personally couldn't do it, especially if you think that the Cincinnati Bengals can push the pace of play this upcoming season. I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to throw a fit about it. I do think they're in the same tier. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Thomas says, if I know the people in my redraft, non-PPR, 12-team, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end, will bump running backs up. Should I draft running back early to try to not get boxed out or capitalize on the wide receiver value? It's going to depend in the range of your draft. What I would say is, let's go to the top of the draft board so we can talk about this for a second. What I would say is, let's not all of a sudden start taking running backs tiers ahead of where they should go. So say you're drafting at like the 109 in your draft, and right there you're looking at Jamar Chase as the best available wide receiver, whereas the best available running back is going to be Alvin Kamara. Should we go ahead and should we pull the trigger on? No, we probably shouldn't. We probably should just take a wide receiver in that range. But say we're at the 103, and you know your league mates are going to really want to go running back heavy. At the 103 in these formats on Underdog, where we know that wide receivers are going to get pushed up, I am personally taking Justin Jefferson. I'm taking Justin Jefferson. I mean, I'm taking Cooper Kupp over Christian McCaffrey. But if you know running backs are going to get pushed up later, you probably want to grab one of those 3-down running backs at the very beginning. That way you can capitalize on the wide receiver value in the middle rounds. So as a general rule of thumb, I know this isn't perfect advice, but if you're playing in a redraft format and you are afraid of your league mates pushing running backs higher than they should actually go, I would recommend to take a running back early, get a 3-down player, and then afterwards just soak up wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver. Try to bring in as much value at the wide receiver position as you can in the middle rounds. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Palmer says, I have the 101, 102, and the 107. I play in a 1-quarterback league, so quarterbacks won't be going early. After Hall in London, am I okay to take Watson at the 107, even if Olave or Williams might be there? I like the idea because the situation he's in. Personally, I can't pull the trigger. Personally, I do think you have to go ahead, and I think you have to take either Chris Olave or Jameson Williams. My preference would be Chris Olave. I just think that they're a tier above, if we're going to be honest. Okay, let's figure out where we are going to go in this draft because quarterbacks have been soaked up. Is Daniel Jones gone? Crap. Where did Daniel Jones go? Oh, no, he's not gone. I'm an idiot. Okay, so we're going to take Daniel Jones if he makes it. We're 3 picks away. This team only has 1 quarterback. They have Lance as their QB. Let's see if they go Daniel Jones. They go Daniel Jones. Oh, my gosh, that's frustrating. Is this a league where we have to draft freaking 3 QBs? Robbie Anderson, 177. I really want to take Pickens here if he makes it. Looks like we're going all in on Mahomes. Mahomes better be productive this upcoming season, or this team will just be straight up garbage. Come on, Billy. You know you don't want George Pickens. You don't want that mess in your life. Yeah, you want Will Fuller instead. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take George Pickens. We will get one of these running backs on the way back around. Mac Jones is off. Or should we just go ahead and take Jared Goff? There's Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. Let's just go ahead and take Jared Goff. Ugh. Do we even have a Lion? We don't, but what are you going to do? It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, let's go through. Let's find our next questions. Our next question coming out from, sorry about that. Coming out from Hassan says, would you trade away Tom Brady, Darrell Henderson, Chris Godwin, Terrace Marshall, and Albert O for Kyle Pitts in a 14-team PPR format and no tight end premium? Okay, Darrell Henderson, garbage. Tom Brady, worth very little. Like, realistically, trust me, I'm in Tampa right now. I would love for Tom Brady to play for a couple extra seasons. If I know we've said this for the past couple seasons, so of course, every time we say it, we just end up getting proved wrong. But the man's what, 45? To project you get Tom Brady for anything more than this season, it's pretty tough. So if we are just getting in a time machine and we go to the 2023 offseason, Tom Brady may have no value. Darrell Henderson may have no value. Terrace Marshall may have no value. So you traded Chris Godwin and Albert O for Kyle Pitts? Yes. Sign me up. Let's go get Kyle Pitts. Okay, so now our next question coming out from Bobalicious says, 16-team rebuilding league. I have Lance, Chase, Gibson, Corey Davis, and Gabriel Davis, and Kyle Pitts. I have picks 1, 4, 5, 8, and 13. Should I stay the course and draft or use some picks to acquire a couple studs? Nice work on the Fantasy Pros mock. Thank you, my man. And here, if it's going to be a super flex format, it is so difficult in that 16-team super flex league to ever come away with quality starting quarterbacks. Some would say, including myself, that it's damn near impossible to come away with those starting QBs. I think you easily go Breece Hall. If it's a 16-team super flex, I definitely would end up taking Kenny Pickett at either pick 4 or 5 if he's there. And then if it's a one quarterback format, I'd probably be going with Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson, assuming that Kenneth Walker and Drake London are already off the board. Pick 8, Chris Olave. Pick 13, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, whoever's available there. So I would say just stay the course. I think in a 16-team format, the team's better than it sounds, just because obviously you say those names out loud and it's gross. Where the team looks like it is lacking is wide receiver depth in particular and another solid running back. But if you just go through and if you make those rookie selections in a 16-team league, this team may not be that bad. Okay, so Matt coming out says 2022 9th overall and a late future first for Chris Godwin on a win now team. I'm going to prefer the 2 picks. We're going to prefer the 109 and a future first. It's just too much of a price to pay for Godwin. I would honestly say even if Godwin wasn't injured, maybe it would be tough to pay that price. Okay, Noah says, do you think Antonio Gibson's hate is justified? He had 300 touches last season. He's been a running back one. He's been a running back one for his only 2 seasons in Washington. Has used 3 down. Okay, my man. Noah, you are wrong on every single statement here. I love Antonio Gibson. Like in 2020, I was drafting Antonio Gibson aggressively. I was battling people in the streets every single day talking about Antonio Gibson. But you were just spewing propaganda. This is all lies. I just wrote Antonio Gibson's chapter in our draft guide. And off the top of my head, Antonio Gibson's been the running back 19 on a points per game basis over the past 2 years. He hasn't been a running back one either season. And you're saying that Washington's used a 3-down bell cow every year? No, when? When did they do that? Last year. This is off the top of my head, so I'm sorry if I get 1 or 2 statistics wrong, but it's correct, if we're going to be honest. J.D. McKissic played 6 fewer games than the man. J.D. McKissic played 6 fewer games and had more targets than Antonio Gibson last season. So I'm sorry. I think the Antonio Gibson hate is justified in terms of his falling price point based on what the coaching staff has shown us with their investment into Brian Robinson and into J.D. McKissic. I don't think you should still be avoiding Antonio Gibson now that his price has adjusted. I think he is now appropriately priced, and I would be fine if you wanted to draft him. But yeah, everything you just said there was just straight up propaganda. Okay. So Crayon says maybe it's a 19-team league. He would have been a running back one if it was you're playing in a 19-team league. I apologize. I shouldn't assume that you're playing in a 12-teamer. Okay, let's get ready for our 2 picks here. And it's a Friday night. I really got to walk the dog. I really got to continue to grind away with this draft guide overall. So I'm probably going to make these 2 picks, and then we were going to end this live stream. I think we easily answered 100 questions in this stream. But of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock, supporting the channel. We will go Raheem Mostert, even though we were talking about the fact that I never want to be drafting this RB. Hell, he used to be going and people used to be taking this man around 14, 15. Get him pick 203, I'm fine with it. Now it's priced in that there's an outside chance he gets cut. Should we just go ahead and take Sony Michel as well? F it. But, of course, thank you for being a part of the flock. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you have not done so already, subscribe, drop a like, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Link in the live chat, link in the description, link in the comment section so you can get into our next draft with us. But thank you again. I promise you, I appreciate you. I hope that you have a great weekend, and I hope we get to see you with the live stream tomorrow.